It's time to turn ProtectX Live on again. Do you know, I'm going to need a little bit of audience participation this afternoon. So did you have a good lunch? Yeah. Didn't Phil's speech really resonate? Yeah. Absolutely amazing. Thanks, Phil. That was great. So we are in the last part of the conference. It's going to be fast-paced. It's going to be challenging, it's going to be interesting. We have got 7 speakers, each of which will be speaking for only 7 minutes. I have a gigantic, great big bell down here on my table, and that bell will be getting rung as the 7-minute mark approaches. Kevin did want a trapdoor, but as always, health and safety got in the way of the trapdoor. 7 speakers for 7 minutes and 7 different topics. And what I really like about the ProtectX format is it creates that feeling of debate. Now, we've already had some fabulous sessions today. Those panel sessions were so thought-provoking. But ProtectX is where we want you to really get into some really meaty subjects. The sort of subjects that you're going to go straight across the road to the pub after this and debate those topics, or in the dinner and awards later on tonight if you're staying. What you'll notice about ProtectX is that people will be telling stories, and those stories will resonate with you. And also, when you've only got 7 minutes, you've got to keep it simple. You've got to keep it simple. And that sort of leads me into the first of our speakers this afternoon. And I want to just tell a little bit of a story of my own to almost break the ice and to get us into that by way of introduction to our first speaker. Now, for those of you who know me, I've been in this industry for over 30 years, and I've always had a bee in my bonnet about complexity, especially when I've worked for the big corporates. We talk in a language full of management speak, gobbledygook, jargon. And you know what? Our customers do not like management speak, jargon, and gobbledygook. They like clear language, they like simplicity. But I think that complicated language also permeates into complicated products and complicated processes and complicated experiences. And I always think that it starts with the language that we use. So I just want to play a little game with you this afternoon, if that's okay. And this is where I need you to be a little bit participative. I'm surprised I was able to say that. So I want you all to imagine that we're starting work in a startup company. Now, startup companies have the advantage that they haven't got any of the clutter of being around for many, many years. So a startup company can keep it simple. And this startup company is called the Cat Mat Company. Anybody hazard a guess as to what our business is? Anybody? Mats for cats to sit on. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach everybody the strap line of this company. And we're going to learn it, and we're going to be able to repeat it back to ourselves without any trouble at all. Are you up for that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the strap line. I'm going to let you digest it, and then I'm going to take it off the screen. I guarantee that every single person in this room will remember that strap line. You ready for this? Your cat sat on our mat. What do you reckon? Simplicity in itself. Do you reckon you could shout that back to me if I asked you to? Or even whispered it back to me? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blank the screen. I'm going to count you down from 3 to 1. And I would like everybody in the room from that end all the way down there and the center to shout that phrase back to me. You ready? 3, 2, 1. That was remarkable, wasn't it? I reckon we could do it louder. What do you reckon? 3, 2, 1. See how easy it is to learn a simple phrase. All right, the problem is we're so successful, the Cat Mat Company, just the cat mats fly off the shelves. And we get bigger, we employ more people, we get more departments, and before you know it, more people are interfering with the words that we use. And after a few years, we get a new marketing director in, and he's saying, I think we're going to have to change the strapline a bit. Do you know, I don't like it. I'm a bit more of a fan of passive language, so we're going to change the strapline. But we're going to do the same thing. We're going to learn it, and we're going to shout it back to me. So you ready for this one? Our mat was sat on by your cat. So that's a passive sentence, as opposed to the active sentence that was before. So take a little bit longer to look at this, see what you think. You got it? Are you ready? Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. That was pretty good, wasn't it? Did it not feel just a little bit awkward compared to the first one? A little bit, just a little bit. All right, the company keeps getting bigger, and somebody says, you know, we're going to have to diversify. We're going to have to start selling more than just cat mats. We're going to branch out into different product areas. So a few years later, the marketing director says, we need to revisit our strapline. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to learn this new strapline. You're going to have to look at this really carefully. Our mat was sat on by your cat whilst playing with our innovative range of cat toys and eating our fishy munchies. Are you ready for this? Have you got it? 3, 2, 1. See how it doesn't take long to go pear-shaped, does it? You would really struggle to learn that unless you really wanted to. But now, 10 years later, we're a gigantic big corporate, millions of different departments and silos, and yet another marketing director comes up with yet another strapline. This one, we are really going to have to try hard with this one. Are you ready for this? The rectangular piece of coarse brown material placed on the floor for people to wipe their feet on was sat on by your small furry mottled ginger grey white feline creature with whiskers and pointy ears while playing with our innovative range of toys. Thank goodness for the comma. Developed using our own lean thinking and resilient doctorate level analytical research and eating fish food manufactured from sustainable resources, cooked to ISO 2025 standards and meeting our environmental accountabilities. 3, 2, 1. Come on. You can have a longer look. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. It's impossible. It's impossible, but this happens, doesn't it? You might already be in that complicated area, or you might be a startup, or you might be a smaller company, and you might have something simple, but the pressure on getting it more complicated will hit you, and we've got to resist that. And as I said earlier, I think that if your language is complicated, it's often likely that your product and your processes and your service are complicated as well. And that's what we want to try and avoid. So our first speaker is going to help us to do this. She works for a company which has made simple language part of their proposition. So please welcome to the stage from Holloway, Robyn Rainsley.
Thanks for that, Roger. So basically, we need to talk about making insurance easier to understand. At Holloway Friendly, we call it using everyday language. But before we get into it, I want to start off by showing you the reason why we need to make insurance easier to understand. We went out and asked the public some questions on insurance terms that we all regularly use in this room. So let's have a quick look at how that went.
What is income protection?
I've got no idea.
No?
I don't know. Don't know that one.
What is a premium?
A premium?
Ain't got a clue.
No clue. What is a deferred period?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm sorry.
Don't know.
And last one, a guaranteed insurability option.
I don't know.
Yeah, what was the word again?
Guaranteed insurability. I don't know how else to describe that.
Okay, I got no idea on that one.
No.
No clue on that one.
Too many words.
If I saw it in there, I'd probably I don't even know. I'd probably just tick yes at the end anyway.
As you can see, that was a real mix of people, all who could be amongst our customers. They struggled with even what we would consider the basic terms. So what chance have they got trying to decipher our KFDs, T's and C's, and reason why letters? Following on from what Roger said, let's put it like this. If I was to say, so what are we all doing here today? Would you answer me like this? We're a synergistic cohort of cross-functional stakeholders strategically positioned in a collaborative ideation space, actively engaging in a knowledge transfer session at the Protection Review event. Or would you just say, we're a group of people sharing ideas at the Protection Review event? Far more simpler, isn't it? I know if I asked you all to raise your hand now, if you'd like your customers to understand your product and know what they're buying from you, I'd see every hand up in this room. And that is because we know how important it is to be clear with our customers. When they understand what they're buying, they trust it. They feel confident that they're making the right choices for themselves and for their families. But too often, the way that we talk about these products is creating the barriers, the technical terms, the long explanations, the insurance jargon is really just going to overwhelm them. It's also important to note that our regulator has made it really clear with Consumer Duty that communications are a priority area for our whole industry to focus on. So let's have a look at some of the basics as to why everyday language is so important. Let me start by sharing an important statistic with you. The average reading age in the UK is generally considered to be around 9 years old. That doesn't mean that people have the intelligence of a 9-year-old. It just means that the world of words that they know is similar to that of a 9-year-old. By the age of 9, most children will have built up a vocabulary made up of around 5,000 primary words and 10,000 secondary words that they use regularly. That's what we would consider their everyday language. So if you go outside of that, what happens? Well, it can be confusing because they haven't got a clue what you're saying. It can be hard to process because maybe they don't hear those words regularly or maybe they've not heard them before. Obviously, that's then quite annoying. It can cause mistrust because how do they know if what you're saying is true? It can then lead to them stopping making a decision or actually just completely giving up. And going back to Consumer Duty, if they don't understand something, you're much more likely to get a poor outcome. They're obviously all negative emotions, not something anybody in this room would like a customer to go away from a conversation with you feeling. But it really is quite easy just to use everyday language. So let's have a quick look at how you can put that into practice. So let's say you've got a communication to a customer and you want to improve it. It could be an email, for example. Read through it, get the gist of it, close it down, open up a blank page. Now imagine you're having a chat with a mate. You could be in a coffee shop, preferably it would be a pub for me, but wherever you want to be. But that friend doesn't work in insurance, and that's key. The friend doesn't work in insurance. Think about what you want to say and how you'd say it to that friend. And then write it down exactly as you'd say it, even down to the punctuation. You wouldn't be using the language that we all use, the corporate insurance speak. It will feel more direct, not passive, like Roger was just talking about. It will feel more natural, more friendly, warmer, obviously then making it easier to trust. You won't be using any jargon and defined terms because your friend wouldn't understand what you were saying. You'll use short sentences. It will become conversational between you and the intended reader. You can put yourself in their shoes and empathize with them of the questions that they might be asking you so that you can prepare the answers. It will generally just flow a lot better. When you're more aware of it, you'll notice it happening. Like when you go to sit and write an email, you read it back just to check you've got everything in there, and you find it sounds just absolutely nothing like you, how you would normally speak. I mean, we've all been there. But if you think back to that conversation with your friend, you really, really will start to notice the difference in how your communications sound. So let's go back to the public for a second and see what happens when we do explain things to people using everyday language.
Income protection, just a type of insurance that pays you money each month if you're too sick to work. Premium is the monthly price of your insurance.
All right.
A deferred period is if you do become too unwell to work, you can choose how long to wait before we start paying you. And a guaranteed insurability option, it's just if you have a big life event happen, for example, you have children or you take out a mortgage, You can take out more insurance without having to answer any more health questions. Does that sound better? Sound easier to understand?
A lot easier to understand,
Yeah,
That's great.
brilliant.
I suppose when you use words to describe such complicated concepts, like, when you try and shorten things that aren't really that easy to, everything just kind of gets lost.
Yeah.
Those big words, terminology is so difficult.
But at the end of the day, why would you have a contract where someone can't understand the language?
Unless you are in the field, you wouldn't know what it
No.
means.
I mean, what's the point of using words that the average person will never understand?
So you can see what a big difference such simple changes can make when it comes to customer understanding. I know a big worry, by speaking plainly, we lose professionalism, but we don't. What we do is we actually gain connection, and connection is what builds those lasting relationships with our customers. It doesn't take anything away from the fact we are still professionals and we can still say what we need to say. We felt everyday language was the right thing for us to do. We rewrote everything, trained everyone at Holloway, and even gave training to firms and advisors to support them with consumer duty. If you want any help on how to get started, we're more than happy to chat. We've even got a copy of a guide we could send you. But the people in this room today have the power to make the industry better. By simplifying our language and being transparent, we remove the distrust. We show that we are not here to confuse people, but to protect them and support them. So have that chat with your mate at the pub, take the red pen to your current language, because if we want to change how people view insurance, we must start by changing how we talk about it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm not as prepared as Robyn. I don't have cue cards. In Middlesbrough, we can't afford them, so I've got paper. And I haven't learned my lines because my brother is an actor, and that's why he is brilliant at reading lines and works for Netflix, and I'm in the insurance industry. So I'm going to read off this piece of paper as best I can, and I'm going to talk about how we can make insurance simple by using social media and actually attract customers, because everything that we're trying to do in the industry with what Robyn's just said is amazing, but we need to first have the actual clients to do that with. So that's where the power of social media comes in. And that's literally what Robyn was saying, is how I generate every bit of business that I have. All I do is stand, sit, walk, and take my phone out and talk exactly as I speak every day. So, a little bit about my story and how I got to be where I am today and why social media has played a massive part in that, is that I started in the industry 5 years ago and I had absolutely no social media whatsoever. Didn't even have Facebook, didn't even know what TikTok was. And I knew that starting in a customer-facing role, I needed to get some social media, so I started at it. Yellow Pages are replaced with videos, posts, Googles, and I mean, we are very lucky to be able to use social media, and think about for a moment how hard it would be to do this job without social media. We'd have to pay for shop fronts, we'd have to pay for standing in, which I've done by the way many times, and I would advise anyone does it, standing in the baby shows and, you know, mother baby things, and giving out flyers to 5,000 people and everyone making you feel like an absolute nitwit and that you're doing their head in and getting no business from it whatsoever. And I think a lot of the time we take for granted just how good we have it. And I can sit with social media from the comfort of my home with a glass of wine in my hand and use just my thumbs. That's it. You're just using your thumbs, your Wi-Fi and your phone. We don't need to make it hard work. And I, for one, am so grateful that I've managed to grow a business from using just my phone. I don't pay high rental each month. I just pay for a phone bill. I don't stand in the cold shouting about what I do. I stand in front of my window with a selfie stick. And I speak to such a large audience across the whole of the UK in places that I've never heard of and who without social media would never have found me. And that's what social media gives us, is the power of freedom. We can do it anywhere, anytime, around our own lifestyle. I sit in the house, I go in the car, go for a walk, and to be honest with you, people think that you need to have an agenda and like what you need to be speaking about each day and what your content ideas are. I literally just speak about what matters at the time. So sometimes it might be that you'll see loads of videos in the same top or the same outfit, and it's because something's really pissed me off that day and I'm on an absolute rampage and I've got loads of things I need to speak about. And then I'll go quiet for a couple of days because I've had an influx of leads. And it's so brilliant, because literally when people say, how do you get all your business? Honestly, it's all through social media and keeping things simple. And my husband once said, true in his wedding speech about me, was that true perfection has to be imperfect. And that's what all clients are looking for. They're looking for someone to speak to who they can relate to, someone who they know is on their wavelength, someone who they can be honest with, feel comfortable about talking about the stuff, you know, STDs, drug use, alcohol. They want to know that they're talking to someone who they can feel comfortable with. And that's what being simple and being yourself really does online. It pushes the right type of customers for you. And I recently recorded some videos for my website a couple of weeks ago. And honestly, I did exactly the same thing that I do every day, talk. And he said, right, this video you've got, just make that into the one for the website. And I was like, right, okay. And he sat me down and he pointed one of those at me. And my head went, it just completely went, because I was under so much pressure. A bit like now, like I'm absolutely shitting myself because there's so much pressure with it. But what you don't realise is how easy you have it, that you can pick up your phone, record a video, just be completely, absolutely, unapologetically yourself, and you can gain business from it. Just stop overcomplicating it. All you need to do is be yourself. And a lot of you might not want to do that, but unfortunately that's what you've got to deal with. So you need to just do it. That's the hardest bit. Now, I'm not saying social media is a walk in the park, because it isn't. It takes so much time in terms of consistency, determination and thick skin. However, the possibilities you can get back are endless. You can build a brand, which is what I've done. You can become an influencer. I mean, did anyone think 10 years ago there would be an influencer for insurance? Because I didn't think such a boring subject could be turned into something that people actually wanted to listen to. And I don't think insurance is boring. When you said we should be proud, I'm so proud to be an insurance advisor. I really am. I think we're so lucky to be able to create awareness and make sure that people actually understand what they're paying for, because 99% of people come and they don't know what they've actually got in place. So if you just put a bit of consistency into what you're doing, sit down, get the balls to actually start recording and not overthink it, and you do it for 6 weeks, every day, 1 video a day, I guarantee you will get some business from it. Now, I'm not consistent at everything. That's why I've got cellulite, because I can't go to the gym for longer than 3 days and I can't stop eating dairy milk. But I'm consistent at social media, and that's why it works. So, moving to it, Jesus Christ. 7 minutes actually is a lot harder, my husband is right. I've literally completely forgot. Right, so, if you take... Gee, I've got some apologising. Right, so, stop caring about what people think. And to be honest, there's probably a lot of people in this room who don't like the way I do business and don't think it's professional. And I stopped being prim and proper a long time ago, because for the first year of my career, I was really bad at getting leads because I wasn't being myself. And without being rude, I don't really care if people don't like what I do, because they're not my customers. There's plenty of people out there who are your customers and who will like what you do. And that's because you're never going to be everyone's cup of tea, but maybe that's because you're champagne. Right.
Afternoon. I feel as though I'm coming behind 2 absolutely brilliant speakers who are very new to public speaking. And I can't believe how well they've done. So ladies, I think a big round of applause for the 2 ladies that have gone so far. Oh, let's move that. So I've just given you some of my 7 minutes. So I promised Roger I would do this in less than 7 minutes. So now I've got to keep to it. So what's love got to do with insurance? So we all sit in the room here because actually we love insurance. But complainants that come to the Financial Ombdusman Service also talk in the language of emotion. They talk about buying protection insurance to cover them for the things they love, the people they love, the life they love. And when they're in a place where they feel dissatisfied, unhappy, complaining, they also talk emotionally. They talk about frustration, anger, despair, and sometimes embarrassment. So what do we see? So the population of the UK is about 68 million at the moment. And data suggests that last year, protection insurance sales accounted for 25 million. So that's about a third of the population. So there's clearly still a very strong appetite from consumers to protect the things they love. At the Ombdusman service, you'll all know, we react to complainants. We don't go and find them, they come to us. And last year, we received about 8,000 complaints from your customers. So that's quite a small proportion, really. But at the same time, what we see is in those complaints genuine reasons why we disagree with what you have done. At the moment, we uphold about 25% of those claims. For general insurance, so for all insurance, that's about 38%. So 25% sounds like something to celebrate, doesn't it? But when you break it down into the individual product components, what you see is quite a disparity. I've deliberately chosen today a story to share with you that reflects some of the complaints that we uphold at a rate of about 50%. The important element in bringing this story to you is around the importance of flexible, agile, and responsive communication in a world of increasing vulnerability. Most of the complaints we see about protection insurance are really covering a few main themes. Claim delay is a regular theme, as is customer service, and also redemption. For reviewable whole of life policies, we uphold the 50%. And in fact, it's an increasing trend. So something that is really important when you understand that most of the complainants that come to us are over the age of 60, and we uphold more of those complaints in that age bracket. So that tells you something about the journey that your customer has been on over a number of years. I want you to meet Jean and Donald. Jean and Donald are not real people, but Jean and Donald's story reflects some important cases that come to the service. So Jean and Donald bought a whole of life reviewable policy in the 1980s. It had a guaranteed assurance number for a value for the first 10 years, and it was annually reviewable. And everything was going really, really well. It met their needs, the premium was affordable, and so they continued. Over time, they'd increased the value and also increased their premium to make sure the policy was still suitable for their longer term needs. And in the following few years, regular communication really reassured them that the policy was fit for their purposes, they trusted it, and they felt it had value. And then all of a sudden, they received a review letter which projected that their premium would more than double in the next few years. And in the few years after that, increase again, to the point that they would be paying multiple thousands of pounds each month at a point where their income was reducing because they were heading into retirement. That shock led to a massive drop in their sense of confidence and in the value they saw in that policy. They felt that they had no alternative but to surrender the policy and give up the protection that they had so hard worked for. The big challenge here with these policies is the time from inception through to the time when the big changes happen, and the information, the level of detail that consumers receive plays a big part in how they feel over time. For Jean and Donald, more information with better clarity, helping them to make an informed decision about the future, would have gone a long way to ensuring they remained confident about what decisions they needed to make. Average life expectancy in this country has increased by more than 10 years since the 1970s, and that's for both men and women. So when you think about the real Jean and Donald of this world, are they going to be confident in the protection that they have bought? Will they continue to believe it adds value? Or will they be bringing complaints to the Financial Ombdusman Service in the years and months ahead? We've heard a lot today about the consumer duty. We've lived and breathed it in this industry for the last 18 months, if not a long time before. Consumer duty, I think it's important to reflect, and has actually been mentioned in this room today. Consumer duty built on much of the existing guidance. It didn't change everything we did, it just enhanced it. It includes a requirement to learn from complaints. So you'll see the three main threads here. So PRIN talks about identifying complaints through internal monitoring and conversations. The final guidance talks about taking existing decisions from the Financial Ombdusman Service and using them in similar circumstances to reduce the risk of harm. And in the FCA policy statement, it talked about the fact that the FCA will use data about complaints to understand how well the consumer duty has been embedded. So when we go back to the very beginning of this conversation about the importance of adaptable and flexible and responsive communication in a world of increasing vulnerability, I will actually call on Settle's statement this morning. He said, this is a call for us all to take that step back and think. So I will leave you with one last question. Is your organisation actively listening to your customers and learning from their complaints? Thank you.
We need to talk about bridging the generation gap. Rethinking engagement. Can we get rid of that, please? Rethinking engagement, professionalism, and talent development for the future. Now, I'm technically a zillennial. They're also kind of just in the middle, so I've got paper and a phone. I'm going to start with a quote. George Orwell famously said, you've probably all heard it. You won't have. Each generation imagines itself to be more intelligent than the one that went before it and wiser than the one that comes after it. Now, when you have conversations with your children and your grandparents, they've probably all said the same thing. Everybody thinks they're wiser and therefore, I know what I'm talking about. Now, what am I going to talk about for the next 6 minutes and 10 seconds? God, that goes quickly. 2 points. I'm going to talk about attracting and retaining new and young talent. And then I'm also going to talk about considering the needs and expectations of our new generation of clients. The reason that I'm talking about this, and I'm going to be a bit challenging in my speech today, is that I don't think that we're quite grasping it as an industry. Now, there'll be pinpricks here and there where I think we are achieving the right things, but are we really asking ourselves the right questions? So let's look at it from attracting new talent first. Are we, when we're thinking about attracting Gen Z and Gen Alpha now, and some of those millennials, there are still some of us, if we're kind of focusing on casual dress code, pizza Fridays, things like that, versus actually focusing on meaningful career development and the social impact that we're having, I think that when I talk with older colleagues in the kind of, is it Gen X and Boomer, they have a different appreciation of what they think, and I am being very general here, but what they think millennials and Gen Z want. Have they actually asked them? That's a big question to me, is that when you're talking about your future plans and you have your board or your exco or whatever, and they're talking about what the next 5-10 years looks like, how are we going to get new talent? And they're thinking, we're going to do TikTok videos and we're going to do this, that, and the other. Is there anybody in that age group that's actually been part of that conversation? Now, I'm not saying to put a 20-year-old on the board, unless they're phenomenal, but have you actually put that question to the people in your organisation already? I asked ChatGPT, because I'm clinging to the Gen Z side of my age, what do Gen Z really want? And there are 4 main things. There's a sense of purpose. Have you, as an organisation, defined your sense of purpose? Do you talk a good game, kind of colloquially, but have you actually defined the purpose of your organisation? Have you looked at career growth generally? You're not just promising them that they'll have a fantastic career here, but have you actually defined genuine career path if somebody were to join you? We've talked about how insurance is perhaps a little grey, a little boring in the stereotypes of our industry. I'm sure that as a 7-year-old, there isn't anyone drawing that they want to be a financial advisor. I certainly didn't draw this I wanted to be a vet. Financial education is really key. We've talked about that a lot today, but don't be patronising with it. I think we assume that people want like this really fun cartoon. They don't. They just want it to be simple, and the language points that we've made today are so key to that. And then Pauline actually did a really fantastic, I can't see her, but she did a fantastic diversity and inclusion session. That's really important, and I do think that the new generations are, because we're so open to social media. Well, Gen Alpha, as we said earlier, have grown up with social media. It's never not existed. If you tell them that you're older than Google and that you couldn't do that before, their minds will be blown. And again, I'm talking generally. They might say, oh, obviously, I know that. There is a stereotype, I think, as I said earlier, that the younger generation want to work in a really relaxed, casual setting with minimal accountability. But I don't think that's true. I talk to my girlfriends, I'm clinging on to it. I'm 30 in January, but we are still in our 20s. It's just not the case. 30 is kind of a quarter life crisis, which I really have noticed in some of them. A friend walked into a party, how are you doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to change my job. I don't have children yet. We're not even engaged. It's like, okay, right, where should we start? They want to know that they're going to be looked after. We're in an age of immediate gratification. Everybody wants to be a millionaire. Let's support people in getting there. Let's say, right, this is going to be your career, and let's hold you to that. The appeal of structured mentorship programs, clear career pathways, and genuine professional development, not just having a sticker and well done. Now, let's go on to the other side where we're looking at our customers. This is fantastic because a lot of this has already been touched on, and I think that we really are, even if we're not nailing it yet, the fact that we're even talking about it and agreeing that we need to be doing more is fantastic. I'm going to challenge it a little bit. TikTok is the one thing that has really been spoken about today. And yes, absolutely, it has a space. But a lot of my friends, and again, very general, have deleted TikTok. They felt that it was actually damaging their mental health. I don't know if any of you found yourself in a TikTok hole. It'll be 10 a.m. in the morning, you've opened your phone to look at it, and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You can just get stuck in that hole. And so I think that if we funnel ourselves to one particular social media, which I'm not saying we're doing, but if we do that too much, we're gonna damage ourselves in the long run. Also, be careful of the content. Again, I was talking about kind of patronizing language. Yes, it needs to be simple, but don't take people for fools. They are, you've got to give them credit where it's due. This isn't, I wanted to also point that out. We have a fantastic social media team at Vitality, happens to be a Gen Z millennial that is running it. But when you are having conversations about how you're going to promote to consumers, have you, again, involved people of that age group in the conversation? So that is my challenge to all of you, is if you're saying that these things need to happen, obviously let's make them happen, but let's involve the people in the conversation who have these genuine opinions that you're looking for. That's me done.
We need to talk about engaging, educating, and protecting those under the age of 30. So who are Gen Z? Born between 1997 and 2012, and currently between the age of 11 years old and 28. As you can tell, I'm at the older end. This generation are making a significant strides in areas such as climate action, technology, social justice, and passionate for advocating for better mental health and reducing the stigma associated. Now, the average age for the UK for a financial advisor is 58 years old. Is that a fair comment in this room? Yeah, free. This holds us in a really fortunate position, though, because we have access to some of the very best Most knowledgeable and experienced individuals have been leading the way for the past 30 years. However, by 2030, which seems a way off, but only 6 years away, Gen Z will be the leading generation in the workforce. There are 3.6 million workers in the UK who are now under the age of 30, compared to the 1.5 million workers who are over the age of 55. Gen Z are our future employees, colleagues, leaders, and of course our future clients. This is a perfect opportunity to collaborate between generations and make a real difference now. So my question is, how can we maximise the potential of this next generation? Starting with the way we communicate, we spoke about it a lot today, but it's completely evolved with the support of technology, including AI and social media. There are new opportunities to engage and educate on the value of protection. Are you wanting to expand your reach and engage younger audience, introduce those new conversations? Then let's embrace this generation. Be curious and listen to them. People buy from people, and we need to continue to immerse ourselves with these future developments and trust the younger generation will support us to help close that protection gap and get more people protected. Gen Z have a lot to offer and not to be underestimated with their energy and enthusiasm to make a difference with their approach to embrace the new social norms. Whether you agree or not in this new perspective, it's happening either way, and we can't be left behind. Now, recent reports have shown that Gen Z are the most uninsured generation in the UK. There's no surprise there. We don't get taught this kind of stuff in schools. How do you adult life? What are taxes for? Why do we pay national insurance? How do we manage and protect our money? And then add a spanner in the works with challenging times such as COVID, cost of living, and the current housing market. There are more and more younger people who live at home or stuck in rental and only dream of getting on the property ladder. This is literally the wing it generation. Now, the average age for a first-time buyer is now 34 years old. That is the first time a lot of the younger generation are receiving financial advice, which is arguably 10 to 15 years too late. Amy Viewpoint research recently showed that the opportunity to get this generation insured is there, with 65% of Gen Z view income protection as important and do understand the value. However, this generation are also resorting to platforms such as TikTok and Instagram due to the overwhelming information of not knowing where to go and who to speak to. Younger people are making massive financial decisions without any guidance. Do they really know what they're buying and how it works in their world? The research from AB also reflects this, as 46% of consumers did take out protection with no advice. Now, no matter what age, gender, or class we are, we of course need to fully understand who our clients are and the best way to work with them. So today I'm going to be, I cannot speak on behalf of every female under the age of 30, but pulling from my own personal experience, I wanted to share what was important to my partner and I when we were deciding who we wanted to use when we started our journey of remortgaging and moving into our forever home. Firstly, transparency. It was important to us to work with people who matched our energy. They had quick, clear turnarounds with no surprise hidden costs, and the value for money was clearly explained. We could see why that particular provider or company were right for us, and we are straight talking, no faff kind of people and wanted facts and figures, like a lot of people, but this generation are no different. We want to work with an expert in the industry who would provide us support in the event of needing it. Being digital savvy, when I say this, I'm not saying you should go on TikTok and have a dance. That's not the reason to buy with a particular provider. What I mean by this is having an online presence. This is important to us, as I like to be able to do my due diligence and read real reviews from real people and have a gauge of the company from their social engagement as well. Having a system which is not dated or clunky is a non-negotiable. If I'm not able to get onto your platform, find the information I want like that, I'll probably move on to another company that's easy accessible online. Now, this generation values fast and efficient communication due to the speed and convenience. All of our communication personally was quick and easy, handled over WhatsApp, phone calls, texts. You can kind of get an idea of who my solicitor and my estate agent was, etc., etc. We had a big bulk of paperwork come through, and that went straight in the cupboard, never opened it, no idea what it says, but if you email it to me, I will read it. Being heard, this is our money and our future goals. How can you help us get there? We may come across as a generation who know it all. And you know, we're not, I promise you. But we are eager to learn from you and listen to your advice and how it can benefit us. Please take us seriously and please do not assume this can be the difference in us using you or not. I may actually want to pay a little bit more for quality. I may actually want to use age costed guaranteed over level. And I may want to know a little bit more about your company, your morals, your values, and a bit more about their claim stats. Trust us to make that decision. We appreciate having the freedom of choice. Leading me on to the added extras. Who doesn't want a little bit extra for the money and some instant gratification? We live in a world with Amazon Prime, and this generation are no different. Whether that's coffee, cinema tickets, GP appointments, or mental health support, the added extras to give us an enhancement on our daily quality of life is a key selling point. And lastly, when it all comes down to in the end, is trust. Having a rapport with a person is make or break. I want to build up a relationship with that individual, not a robot or a screen. I want to feel at ease and freely disclose my wants and needs with no judgment. Time is precious to this generation, including myself, and I really want to get the best out of our conversation. Trust takes time to build and easy to lose. And with trust comes loyalty, more business, and more referrals. I don't care what you look like, where you're from, how you speak. None of that's important to me. I just want you to be professional, be respectful, relatable, patient, and kind, and someone I can trust. So, these are just a couple of things that are important to us on our journey. Hopefully you can take away at least one thing from my experience to support you in your conversations going forward to understand this next generation and get more under 30s protected. Thank you.
I'm going to be talking about women's health at work, navigating the midlife transitions. Okay, so your average lifespan isn't really 100, it's 80. So unfortunately, midlife is really around 40. Now I want all of you to put your hands up if you know someone who's had a child over the age of 30. Yeah, that's a lot. And also keep your hands up if you know someone who's also navigated the workplace with female health challenges, whether that's reproductive health challenges, perimenopause, menopause, or other female health issues. Yeah, it's pretty much all of us, right? But we rarely talk about it. So I'm going to talk today about the silent tipping point. The fact is there is an intersecting reality of women having children later in life and also going through perimenopause. In fact, ONS talked about that 56.5% of women are childless by the age of 30. And I don't know if you know a lot about perimenopause, but this can start as early as 35. In fact, there are 4 key stages of perimenopause that a lot of people don't know what's going on with their bodies. In fact, it's a critical window of help for women. So basically today, I'm going to be talking about why I've dedicated my professional life to supporting women during this midlife transition. In fact, I'm going to be sharing my personal story as to why I'm here today. Now, basically, I returned to work after having my first child. I had my first child at 36, and I expected to have it all, you know, an amazing job, be that same person I was before I had a child, be an amazing partner and amazing mum. But the reality was really different. In fact, I experienced significant birth trauma, and many women don't talk about their situations that they go through. Women don't talk to women, let alone men and the workplace. So a lot of people think you have normal births, normal pregnancies, all those things. It's not true. It's just people suffering in silence. In fact, when I went back to the workplace, I asked for the additional support. Unfortunately, I was met with the response that I was senior enough to deal with the situation at hand. Not particularly helpful. Didn't help that I was also diagnosed with something called premature ovarian insufficiency. So for people who don't know what that is, it's early menopause before the age of 40. I didn't even know what that was, really weird thing to get, but it's really 1 in 100 women get it. So let's just say navigating perimenopausal symptoms in the workplace is something that's familiar with me. Anyway, on top of that story, I ended up finding out I was pregnant 2 months in after returning back to work after this whole situation. I was elated, but also really scared because I had this really significant birth trauma. So when I went back to hospital, I found out my cervix was actually prematurely opening. I was put on bed rest, and as you can see, I was in a wheelchair, and my cervix was stitched up. I navigated the workplace without any more support, and I felt really alone, overwhelmed, and it led to the exit of my corporate job, which is why I'm here today. Now, there is a silent crisis going on at the moment. Basically, we need to be more open and support women more proactively. So why is it time to be proactive? Because it's bloody depressing. Okay, the stats don't lie. 1 in 3 women are navigating a reproductive health issue in the workplace. AXA's recent report about female health in the workplace that highlighted that number could be significantly bigger. In fact, also there's an intersectional reality going on. Black women are 4.7 times more likely to die from childbirth, and Asian women 2 times likely to die from childbirth and subsequently thereafter than white women. So this is really huge and never spoken about. And what really bothers me is that less than 2.5% of publicly funded research is actually spent on reproductive health. How can we effectively underwrite and support women when there's no up-to-date evidence and data? So basically, now we're back here at the Women's Health Strategy. Really welcome strategy by the government, by the way, in 2022. The respondents noted 5 key areas for improvement, and that is really gynecological issues, postnatal support, pregnancy loss, menopause, menstrual health, and obviously mental health. Not a surprise, massively underfunded in the NHS and also the private sector. Where are we today, 2 years on? Look at these headlines, right? Does that surprise you? Do you remember those mental health headlines that hit the insurance industry? I can see this as a key reputational risk coming down the line for female health support. So what I'm going to talk to you about now is the second puberty. A lot of people don't really know what perimenopause is. We talk about menopause a lot, but actually perimenopause are the stages where you actually go through before you hit menopause, and that's where all the roller coaster of symptoms happen. If you look at this chart over here, do you remember good old puberty and how you went through that huge brain recalibration and hormonal changes? That is what women are going through with perimenopause, yet a lot of women don't know what is going on. What's also really important to highlight is that it is not an illness or a disease. It is a life phase that every woman is going to go through, but it's rarely discussed and people feel shame talking about it. We can talk about puberty, but not perimenopause. And actually, it's a critical window for health. If you've got any underlying health issues when you head towards this stage, unfortunately, these tend to get exacerbated, and that is why women are more prone to chronic and autoimmune disease. And that is why, as an industry, we need to be proactive. So look at this reality. Imagine the women having children later in life, also going through these perimenopausal transitions. It is a lot for women to navigate. So why should you care? Because the insurance industry has a business and social responsibility to address the female health the health gap, So basically, women help to drive the economy, right? Except absenteeism around perimenopause, pregnancy loss, miscarriage, return to work, these things are really not helping with the productivity of the economy. It can also lead to increased absenteeism, and in my situation, early exit from the workplace. Also, prevention, it reduces claims. We already know that from so many different aspects, yet I don't see so much proactive support around hormonal health, menopause checks or anything like that. In fact, when I went through all that whole situation I went through, I really struggled to get the support, even from a private sector support. There's also humongous market opportunity. I don't know if you've seen loads of femtechs out there, but there is loads. And I think there's an opportunity for insurance industries to do more for female health and overall reducing the burden on the NHS. Isn't that the main role for the insurance industry, to really reduce that burden? So what is the solution? Look, I've come up with a couple of things. These are not exhaustive, but these are things that I think would be helpful. First of all, I want to say that it's really important to act now because the Labor government really does care about women's health policy objectives, and that is why they published that 22 health strategy. First of all, we talk about pensions MOTs, financial MOTs. How about a midlife hormonal MOT? And this is something that would be really helpful for women because so many women don't know what is going on with their bodies. And this is a proactive approach. Actually, advisors have a really key role here to contact their clients and say, this is what's going on. These are the areas that you can signpost and say, these are insurers that support your female health, or if you want to get a proactive hormonal check to know what's going on, these are the things you can do. Because I think it's really important to actually be proactive and actually educate people because education is key. The second is vocational rehab. I've actually been talking to the VRA about this a lot. So many women suffer from pregnancy loss, miscarriages, birth trauma, and they do that in silence. Similarly with perimenopause, some people actually fall out of the workplace because of the significant symptoms. Having some sort of triage approach, which actually gets women to see, where they are on that journey and actually support them, is one of the main things that income protection is really good for, having those value-added services. But I don't really see anything around that particular area. Also improving access to specialist care. Okay, so like we saw the NHS, headlines, not great. I actually did some mystery shopping, and let's just say that there is loads of room for improvement. Lots of exclusions out there, and there are some insurers that are better than others. But again, not many people really know where to find the right support. So that's just a couple of suggestions that I thought of. But the main message I really want to highlight today is that it's really, really important to think about women in this midlife transition. In fact, as people are having kids later and later, this is a really obvious intersecting reality, a huge critical window for health for women. And what we do at 40 determines our health at 70. So if you do want to find out more about this, you can contact me afterwards. I'm Roshani Hill. Thank you.
Hi everyone. It's important we talk about why leaders need to start taking personal accountability for DE&I. As we discussed earlier, there has been a lot of progress. Companies are putting a huge amount of effort, and whilst not enough, there is more diversity at senior levels. Also, horror stories of outright discrimination are becoming more and more a thing of the past. But boardrooms are still mainly made up of white middle-aged men, with some execs seeing DE&I as a HR initiative, or worse still, just a tick in the box of the annual ESG report. What's strange is that most of them, I'm sure, are really decent people. So why not value and take a leading role in something so important? So before coming here today, I asked some white male colleagues about how they would feel if they were asked to speak about DE&I. The responses were similar, that although they see the value and importance of it, they're not qualified to talk about it, so would feel uncomfortable to try and represent the topic. If this is the case, it means that the majority of our boardrooms see this as a topic to delegate and support but not own. But if you think about it, unless you meet all of the up to 39 different diversity considerations, how can any of us? I'm female, I'm neurodiverse, I'm from a low socioeconomic background with no formal education. I tick a lot of boxes, as someone once said out loud to me. But I'm also white, physically able, born in the UK, to name a few. So my hand hasn't exactly been hard compared to some. So how do you as a leader drive and represent DE&I when you aren't qualified to speak on behalf of all of your people? The answer, unfortunately, is through a skill that is also in short supply, not just in our industry. It's a skill that actually degrades with seniority and is often confused as a character trait, so written off as something to be learned or developed. I'm talking, of course, about empathy. Now, before I can see the eyes start to roll, I'll start with saying that not many people actually know what empathy is. It's the ability to truly see the world from someone else's perspective and feel that world through their hearts. It means to understand. It's absolutely nothing at all to do with being nice. In fact, high cognitive empathy is a core trait seen in psychopaths, narcissists, and insurance executives. Whilst that last one was, of course, a joke, I do encourage all of you to Google a term called CEO's disease, coined by the Harvard Business Review in relation to leadership and emotional intelligence. It explains a lot. Let me give you a few examples of how empathy makes for a more diverse and inclusive culture. Many of us have been in a position where someone leaving the business states discrimination, but the investigation that follows shows no shred of evidence. You, without applying empathy, conclude this person was wrong to state this. God forbid, might even hear talk of cards being played, not of the poker nature. With empathy, however, you can truly put yourself in this person's position. Imagine being that 10-year-old child walking to school with their mums, experiencing a racist remark from a total stranger. Imagine how it feels to have your mum explain to you that this is just what happens, and probably will for the rest of your life. Imagine being that trans person who spent their entire lives feeling like a stranger in their own bodies, who made the bravest decision to change, only to have abuse shouted at them in the street. Imagine being that autistic person who spends their entire lives feeling somewhat lonely and different because everyone around them understands each other, but not them. Now ask yourself, why wouldn't they feel like this? There are no cards. This is their lived experience. With the lens of empathy, the situation may be different. It may not be. But as a leader, you're tuned into the possibility. Over the last 15 years, we've grown Reassured from 400 to 800 people. And along this crazy journey, the empathy and the practice of empathy has been hugely important. But even with this understanding, we can all still get it wrong. I remember getting it wrong with one of my trans colleagues when I asked her to join the group I'd set up for women at Reassured. I was lucky because she was very kind to me. She explained to me that while she lives and identifies as a woman, she doesn't actually identify with either gender, so wouldn't want to be part of the group. In this case, my desire to include her and blunted approach had put her in an uncomfortable position. But I was lucky enough she spent 3 hours with me, telling me her story. It was the best education I ever had, and I gained a friend. At my first protection review, I was introduced to a male counterpart from another firm. We were introduced. This is Laura. She's the co-founder and COO of Reassured. This person said one thing to me: "I like your shoes," then walked off, probably not to comment solely on the shoes of the men they've met that day. Do I think this person was a raving chauvinist? No. Do I think, with a shred of empathy, so a consciousness of the impact words have on people, it wouldn't have happened? I like to think so. The reality was, being used to this, I rolled my eyes and carried on. But did I feel welcome? Included? I have a burning desire to come again? No. I was embarrassed, having been downgraded publicly as only interesting because of my shoes. As a leader, making a conscious effort to apply an empathy means in relation to DE&I, you don't have to learn 39 different approaches, and you're less likely to get it wrong. And even when you do, your good intent will usually shine through. I guarantee that even when you apply empathy and it doesn't change your decision, it changes how you apply them all the time. We talk a lot about the different types of diversity, but taking this one topic at a time, we're not touching the sides, and we still have so much to do. We still don't truly embrace the superpowers that come with a neurodiverse brain. There's still far too much talk about how supporting one group by default marginalises another. And the undertones, such as I bet they got that position because they were gay, trans, a woman, etc., are still present behind closed doors. And the intellectual snobbery within this industry is palpable, and one of the reasons I've kept my head down for the last 15 years. So instead of taking this one topic at a time, let's attack the root cause, set the tone from the top, and commit to building a more empathic community where everyone is genuinely understood and welcome. And as leaders, let's make sure we take personal accountability for the change that's needed, irrespective of how many boxes we may or may not tick. Thank you.